On a gentle morning, as golden sunlight stretched across the surface of the Florida Sea, Daniel prepared for a day of fishing like any other. He was a simple man, living near the shore, familiar with the waves and the salty breeze of the vast ocean. Every day he would row his small boat out to sea, moving gently like a friend to the ocean, always believing that the sea would grant him good things. That day, the waves rippled softly. The breeze was mild, and the sky was a clear blue, as if all worries had been washed away. Daniel sat leisurely in his small boat, his eyes following each wave, his heart unusually calm. Suddenly his gaze stopped at a small object drifting slowly in the wide ocean. At first, Daniel thought it was just a floating piece of wood, or perhaps a life buoy swept away from the shore, but a vague feeling of unease kept him from looking away. He leaned forward, trying to get a better look. Through his binoculars, the image that appeared made his heart race as if it would jump out of his chest. It was not a buoy or a piece of wood at all. It was a dog, a German shepherd, struggling to keep itself afloat in the vast ocean. Its fur was soaked and tangled, and its eyes held deep exhaustion mixed with endless fear, making Daniel unable to sit still. He held his breath, feeling a wave of both pity and worry swell inside him. The dog was so weak that just a little longer and it would be swept away. Daniel knew he had to do something, no matter how risky. Without hesitation, he started the boat engine and headed toward the dog. The sea rocked harder, the salty wind stinging his eyes, but Daniel kept his gaze fixed on the small dog, trying to lift its head above the water. He knew that if he didn't rescue it immediately, no one else might come in time. Getting closer, Daniel carefully slowed the boat to avoid creating waves that could wash the little dog away. He took off his jacket, gently tossed it into the water, then grabbed the boat's side and jumped into the cold sea. The salty water burned his fingers, but there was only one thought in his mind: save this tiny friend. Though weak, the dog still had some strength to cling to him. When Daniel swam close, the dog nearly collapsed, but sensing safety, it leaned into him, as if finding a refuge amid the storm. Daniel held the dog tightly, and together they swam back to the boat. The waves still crashed, but inside Daniel, everything seemed to stop. There was only the peaceful start of a new friendship. Back on the boat, Daniel wrapped the dog in a dry towel, watching droplets glisten on its wet coat. The dog's eyes gradually softened, no longer fearful but full of trust. Daniel remained silent, deeply moved, as if he had just found a long-lost friend. Beside the vast ocean, a new story was beginning, full of hope and untold miracles. That morning, as Daniel pushed the boat away from the dock, the sea was still calm, and the salty breeze was familiar as always. But his heart fluttered with an unusual feeling. Something was waiting ahead in the deep blue ocean. When he plunged into the cold water, Daniel felt the salty sea breeze brush his skin crisp and sharp. The waves rocked gently but fiercely, and he struggled to keep balance, reaching for the small dog, struggling to keep its head above water. The dog's amber eyes glittered, staring directly at Daniel, a mixture of fear and fierce determination shining through. It seemed to send a silent plea, a message of life and hope. Daniel lifted the dog into his arms, feeling its small body tremble and weaken. The dog rested its head on his shoulder, as if finding safety amid the vast waters. He felt a strange bond, an invisible thread pulling two strangers close together in the endless ocean. Swimming against the current toward the boat, Daniel held the dog tightly, not letting it slip away. The sea waves rose and fell, carrying both man and dog, but at that moment the world was only Daniel, the dog, and life itself. Back on the boat, Daniel carefully wrapped his new friend in a dry towel. The tangled, soaked fur glistened under the sunlight. He gently wiped the dog's face and coat, trying to bring warmth and a sense of peace to the exhausted creature. Daniel named the dog Bolt, a strong, swift name, a hope that the dog would soon recover and live strongly again. But even safe on the boat, Bolt remained cautious. Its eyes darted around, nervously wary of the unfamiliar human. Perhaps the painful past made the dog so careful, or maybe it was just its survival instinct. Daniel did not rush. He sat beside Bolt, speaking softly about the waves, the sunny days, and the peace that would come. Each whisper and each gentle gesture slowly built an invisible bridge connecting two distant souls. Daniel knew true friendship was not just words, but patience and understanding in silent moments. Bolt curled up on the blanket, breathing heavily but steadily. Daniel looked at him, sensing a life still burning, a fierce will to overcome all. He silently promised to stay by Bolt's side, to care for him, and help him find the light in life again. On the vast ocean under the gentle sun, a new journey began, a journey of rescue, silent friendship, and trust, built day by day, hour by hour. Daniel and Bolt, two souls once seemingly lost, had now found each other. And though many challenges still lay ahead, they would walk forward together, writing a story of courage, life, and a deep, wordless friendship. Those first days on land were new and strange for Bolt, a world completely different from the vast ocean he once knew. When he stepped ashore, the German shepherd was still weak, each breath gentle, as if afraid he might not take another step. Daniel looked at him with a mix of worry and tenderness, knowing the road to recovery would be long and difficult. Bolt ate little at first. Whenever Daniel placed a bowl of food before him, Bolt would sniff cautiously and glance around as if afraid something might suddenly threaten him. His eyes still held a trace of fear, not the bright spark he had out at sea, but rather weariness and sadness. Yet Daniel never lost hope. He patiently sat beside him, gently calling his name and carefully cleaning the tangled fur day by day. Each gesture was a promise, a quiet vow to give Bolt a home and safety. In those days, Daniel spent most of his time with Bolt, and gradually the dog grew less wary. Every time Bolt lifted his head and glanced at Daniel with grateful eyes, Daniel felt like he had received a priceless gift. He understood that Bolt's recovery wasn't just physical, but also spiritual, a trust rebuilt slowly, piece by piece. After a week, Daniel decided to take Bolt to a veterinarian for a thorough checkup. The vet, a kind and dedicated woman, gently examined Bolt, treated his wounds, and gave him medicine to help him regain strength. Yet the scars on his skin and his tangled coat told an untold story, a mysterious past full of hardship that Bolt had endured. Daniel sat in the waiting room, gazing out the window with a restless heart. Where had this little dog been? How many trials and pains had taught him to survive? All of it remained a secret, held tight in those bright eyes and sturdy, though still aching legs. He remembered the moment at sea when Bolt looked at him with fearful yet determined eyes, as if saying that, no matter what happened, he would never give up. Daniel thought silently that this fierce will to live was the greatest miracle, a small, fragile creature clinging to life in the vast ocean with every ounce of strength left. Day by day, under Daniel's care, Bolt began to take small steps forward. He ate more and slept more soundly, and the distant looks were slowly replaced by warm, curious eyes exploring the world around him. Daniel always spoke to him, telling stories of the sea sunshine and cool breezes, hoping to share with him hope and trust. At night, when Bolt lay quietly beside him, Daniel couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow. He wondered if Bolt's past life had ever been warm or just filled with long, lonely, and hard days. He knew he couldn't change the past, but he would do everything to fill Bolt's future with love and peace. Recovery was not only a physical miracle, but also a journey of trust. Daniel realized that helping Bolt heal fully required patience, endurance, and unconditional love, qualities the little dog was gradually learning from humans. On this new land, amid the familiar sounds of everyday life, a quiet but strong bond was weaving itself. Daniel and Bolt, once strangers, had become companions, sharing every step along the road to healing and happiness. And though Bolt's story still held many mysteries, Daniel knew that love and sincere care would be the guiding light to help the dog find himself again, a true friend, an indispensable companion in his life. One gentle afternoon on their little patch of land by the sea, Daniel sat on the porch, occasionally glancing at Bolt curled up in the shade of a tree. He was no longer the weak dog Daniel had rescued from the vast ocean. Yet there were things about him Daniel still couldn't fully understand. One day when the distant sound of a fire truck siren echoed, Bolt suddenly perked his ears, and his eyes lit up as if something inside him had awakened. He didn't run or hide like before, but stood quietly, silently observing, as if listening to signals only he could understand. The passing headlights also triggered a strange reaction, a slight startle, then a focused, cautious glance toward the light source. Daniel sat beside him, trying to decode these unusual signs. He wondered if Bolt still remembered something from his past, or if these were simply survival instincts. But his heart told him that Bolt was no ordinary dog. There was something deep and mysterious within those amber eyes. Unable to hide his curiosity, Daniel decided to reach out to an old friend, Frank, a renowned police dog trainer in the area. Frank was not just a friend, but someone who had trained many police and rescue dogs for difficult and secretive missions. Daniel hoped that through Frank, he could learn more about Bolt's story and decipher these strange signs. When Daniel met Frank again, he told him about finding Bolt at sea and the dog's unusual behavior. Frank listened quietly, gazing at Bolt for a long moment, as if reading the hidden story in his eyes. Gently stroking Bolt's head, he said, This isn't an ordinary dog, Daniel. Bolt was a warrior, a special forces dog trained to take part in missions few know about. Daniel was stunned. Questions raced through his mind. What secret missions? Why was Bolt out in the vast ocean nearly lost? And most importantly, what had the dog been through before meeting him? Frank's voice grew low, tinged with sadness as he continued. Bolt was once one of the finest working dogs, rigorously trained for reconnaissance rescue missions and even special operations with security forces. But those missions demanded not only courage, but also heavy burdens, difficult memories that the dog carried with him. Daniel looked down at Bolt lying quietly beside him, occasionally glancing up as if listening to the story. He suddenly realized that the strange behaviors he had witnessed were fragments of lingering memories, instinctive reactions of a warrior who had faced danger and hardship. Day by day, Daniel and Frank worked together to help Bolt recover not only physically but emotionally. They trained side by side, setting small lessons and challenges as a way for Bolt to regain confidence and faith in this new life gradually. Each time Bolt mastered a new skill, his eyes would light up a reminder that his strength and resilient spirit were still very much alive. Yet there were moments when Bolt grew quiet, his gaze distant, as if recalling unspoken days of hardship. Daniel understood that the past would always be a part of Bolt, unchangeable but impossible to ignore. Through these unique signs and the help of his old friend Daniel, began to see that Bolt was no ordinary companion. He was a warrior, a witness to many secret stories and challenges few could understand. More than anything, a silent bond was growing deeper between the two men and the dog, an invisible thread connecting lost souls who had now found peace and hope. Bolt's story still held many mysteries, but Daniel believed that with love and patience, those secrets would slowly unfold, allowing the warrior dog to live a full, free, and happy life alongside the friend he had found. The sky was still dim when Daniel awoke, feeling the rare calm of a seaside morning. But that peace didn't last long before something unfamiliar crept into his and Bolt's lives. Mysterious figures, cloaked and secretive, began appearing around the area, silently watching like uninvited shadows. Daniel immediately knew they were not ordinary tourists or animal lovers. These strangers had a clear purpose to bring Bolt back, but no one knew their true intentions. They appeared suddenly in moments no one expected. A black car parked at the door, cold eyes peering through cracks, whispered words carrying quiet authority. An uneasy feeling rose in Daniel's chest, but he knew more than anyone that Bolt needed protection and shelter. Despite the dog's mysterious past and unhealed wounds, Bolt was now the most loyal friend Daniel had ever known, and Daniel vowed never to let this small dog become a commodity or a tool in dark schemes. One drizzly evening, as thick fog began to settle over the coastal forest, Daniel and Bolt embarked on their escape. They had no choice but to leave their small home behind, avoiding prying eyes and grasping hands. The ocean waves gently lapped at the sandy shore, as if comforting two small friends facing a great challenge. Daniel held the leash tightly while Bolt ran alongside him, weak-legged but determined. They slipped into the woods where ancient trees stood like silent guardians. Daniel knew that in this dense forest, at least, they would have time to think, plan, and keep each other safe. The chase was not just a physical flight, it was a test of loyalty and the strong bond between man and dog. Daniel looked into Bolt's eyes and saw absolute trust, as if saying, "No matter what, you will never abandon me." And Daniel silently promised, "I will never let anyone take you away." Days passed as they crossed rolling green hills, clear, cold streams, and smooth white beaches. Every step, every breath was proof of an unbreakable friendship. When night fell, Daniel told Bolt stories about stars, the sea, and the life they would rebuild together. The little dog lay quietly beside him, eyes shimmering with peace. Danger sometimes appeared, suddenly roaring engines, strange figures in the deep woods. But Daniel and Bolt always worked together, finding ways to hide, evade, and survive. Daniel used every ounce of wit and courage to protect his loyal friend, while Bolt relied on instinct and keen senses to alert and help Daniel overcome obstacles. One bright moonlit night, as ocean waves gently rocked silent fishing boats, Daniel and Bolt stood on the sandy shore looking toward the distant horizon. Under the silver moonlight, their souls seemed to merge, wordless but powerful. Daniel knew that no matter the challenges, no matter what life brought, this friendship would never falter. Life outside might be harsh, but in each other's arms, Daniel and Bolt found warmth and peace. They had chosen one another not for perfection, but for loyalty and genuine love. And that choice would be their strength through all the stormy nights, all the stormy days, and the bright ones ahead. Daniel looked at Bolt, the little dog, breathing softly, peacefully asleep after a long day. He whispered, "I will always be with you, no matter how the world changes." And Bolt, understanding, rested his head on Daniel's lap, a silent promise, a steadfast bond between two kindred spirits. This is a story of a chase of brave decisions, and above all, a story of unbreakable loyalty between man and dog, between hearts once lost, now found, walking forward together on the road ahead. A gentle morning spread softly along the shoreline, with pale golden rays stretching across the smooth white sand. Daniel stood there, hand in paw, with Bolt, the little friend, who had weathered so many storms by his side. After days of running, worrying, and facing danger, they had finally found a small, peaceful home, nestled among the cool green coconut palms where the sea whispered gentle stories. The house wasn't big or fancy, but to Daniel and Bolt, it was the warmest place in the world. Its whitewashed walls shimmered in the sunlight, the old wooden door was full of life, and the wide windows welcomed the cool sea breeze. This was the first home Bolt could truly call his own, a place where he no longer had to be afraid or run away. On the very first day stepping into the yard, Bolt softly licked Daniel's hand, as if thanking the friend who had never let him go. The little dog's glossy coat, once marked by fatigue, now glowed with a fierce vitality, and his eyes sparkled with freedom. His first steps on the sandy beach in front of the house were no longer tentative but full of excitement, like a child playing for the very first time. Daniel sat on a stone bench on the porch, watching Bolt run and play with pure joy shining on his face. He felt a lightness in his heart, as if all worries and unfinished dreams were slowly being replaced by faith and hope. Though their story was far from over and challenges still lay ahead, the most precious thing now was the strong friendship and freedom they had built together. Soft sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing patches of light and shadow on the sand, on Bolt's fur, and on Daniel's thoughtful face. Freedom was something they had both earned through hard days, nights hiding in the dark, and times facing danger. But now freedom was their breath, their warmth, the simple joy they could feel every moment. Bolt trotted over to Daniel, gently nudging his head against his leg with affection. It wasn't just a simple gesture, it was a lasting promise, a silent vow between two kindred souls. Daniel bent down and placed his hand on Bolt's head, and together they quietly watched the vast ocean where the waves no longer roared, but were gentle like old friends. Daniel knew that though their story wasn't finished, and many things remained untold, this home was the start of a journey of love, trust, and peaceful days ahead. Amid the endless sea and sky, they had found each other, freedom and the simplest happiness. The sky glowed warm orange with the sunset, the sea breeze softly rustling the grass, carrying the salty scent of the ocean and the wildflowers' fragrance. Daniel and Bolt sat together like the closest friends in the world, waiting for all the good things yet to come. And at that moment, no words or grand promises were needed. Just having each other was enough to keep writing their own story, a story of life, friendship, and freedom, a story that stretched far beyond the vast ocean beyond them.